Ladies and gentlemen, betrayal is painful. It shakes the very foundation of trust and forces us to question the people around us. But what if I told you that their betrayal is not the end of your story, but the beginning of something greater? History has shown us time and time again that betrayal often precedes breakthrough. Consider Joseph. His own brothers sold him into slavery, yet that very act of betrayal positioned him to become a ruler in Egypt. What they meant for harm, God used for good. Betrayal is one of the most painful experiences a person can endure. It shakes the very foundation of trust and can leave deep emotional wounds. Whether it comes from a friend, a family member, a colleague, or even someone you deeply admired, betrayal often feels like a personal attack on your worth. It makes you question your judgment, your relationships, and sometimes even your purpose. But what if betrayal was not meant to destroy you, but to elevate you? What if the very pain that someone inflicted on you was actually a stepping stone to something greater? Often, the people who betray us unknowingly become the catalysts for our growth. They push us into places we never would have gone otherwise. Their actions, though hurtful, set the stage for transformation. Consider how history has been shaped by individuals who were betrayed, rejected, or abandoned, only to rise stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. Betrayal can feel like an injustice, but in the grand scheme of things, it may be the very thing that propels you toward your destiny. Think about the moments in your life when betrayal forced you to change direction. Maybe a trusted friend turned against you, and as a result you found yourself seeking new relationships that were more aligned with your values. Maybe an employer let you go unfairly, but in doing so, opened the door for a better career opportunity. Maybe someone you loved walked away, breaking your heart, only for you to later realize they were never meant to be part of your future. When we are in the midst of pain, it is difficult to see the bigger picture, but hindsight often reveals that what we thought was a setback was actually a setup for something better. Betrayal also has a way of refining us. It exposes weaknesses in our trust, our expectations, and sometimes even in our character. It forces us to grow emotionally and spiritually. If handled correctly, betrayal can become a lesson that strengthens us rather than weakens us. Instead of allowing it to harden your heart or make you bitter, use it as an opportunity for self-improvement. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this pain to become better, not bitter? Furthermore, betrayal separates us from the people who do not belong in our journey ahead. Sometimes we hold on to relationships, friendships, and associations that no longer serve our purpose. We stay connected to people out of loyalty, history, or comfort, even when they are not meant to be part of our future. When someone betrays you, it is often God's way of removing them from your life. Not everyone is meant to go where you are going. Elevation requires separation. Ultimately, betrayal is painful, but it is not the end of your story. It is simply a tool for your growth, a shift in direction, and a preparation for something greater. When faced with betrayal, do not dwell in bitterness. Embrace the opportunity to rise above it. Rejection is one of the most difficult experiences in life. It can feel like a personal failure, a sign that we are not good enough, not worthy, or not capable. Whether it comes from a friend, a loved one, a job opportunity, or a dream we have worked tirelessly for, rejection can shake our confidence and leave us questioning our purpose. However, what we often fail to realize in the moment is that rejection is not always a bad thing. In many cases, rejection is simply God's way of redirecting us towards something better. When we place our faith in people, we often expect them to validate us, to accept us, and to open doors for us. But people are limited in their understanding. They do not see the full picture of our lives the way God does. When someone rejects you, it may not be because you lack value. It may simply be because you are not meant to be in that place with that person or in that situation. God sees the road ahead, and He knows that if you were to stay where you are, you might never reach the destiny He has planned for you. Imagine wanting a certain job, praying for it, preparing for it, and then getting rejected. In the moment, the rejection stings. You feel like all your hard work was for nothing. But months or years later, you may realize that if you had gotten that job, you would have been stuck in a place that did not fulfill you. Perhaps God had something greater waiting for you, but you had to be rejected first in order to be redirected to it. Many times, the opportunities we lose make room for the opportunities we are meant to receive. The same applies to relationships. Sometimes, we hold on to people who are not meant to be in our lives. We ignore the signs, we tolerate mistreatment, and we convince ourselves that things will get better. But then rejection happens. A friend walks away, a partner decides to leave. It feels like a devastating loss, but in reality it is divine protection. When God removes someone from your life, He is not punishing you, He is preparing you. Some people are only meant to be in your life for a season, and when that season is over, their departure is necessary for your growth. Rejection teaches us to trust in God's plan rather than our own. It reminds us that we are not in control, but that we serve a God who knows what is best for us. Instead of mourning over what did not work out, we should ask ourselves, what is God making room for in my life? Every rejection is an opportunity for redirection. The doors that close are just as important as the ones that open. Trust that what is meant for you will never require you to beg, chase, or compromise who you are. God's plan is always greater than rejection. Throughout history, some of the greatest success stories have been built on betrayal. It is a painful reality that even the most well-intentioned people can turn against us, abandon us, or deceive us. While betrayal hurts deeply, it is often a tool that propels us forward, forcing us to step into our true calling. One of the most powerful examples of this is the story of Joseph from the Bible. His journey from betrayal to blessing is a testament to how God can use even the worst situations for good. Joseph was favored by his father Jacob and was given a special coat to symbolize this favor. However, his own brothers, filled with jealousy, turned against him. They plotted against him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. To make matters worse, they lied to their father, making it seem as though Joseph had been killed. This act of betrayal could have destroyed Joseph, but instead, it set him on a path that led to greatness. In slavery, Joseph faced more hardship. He was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison for a crime he did not commit. Yet, despite the betrayal and unfair treatment, Joseph remained faithful to God. He did not allow his circumstances to make him bitter. Instead, he continued to use his God-given gifts, interpreting dreams even while in prison. His faithfulness eventually led to an opportunity. Pharaoh had a troubling dream, and Joseph was called upon to interpret it. His wisdom and discernment impressed Pharaoh so much that Joseph was elevated to a position of great power, becoming the second in command over all of Egypt. Years later, a famine struck the land, and Joseph's brothers, the very ones who betrayed him, came to Egypt seeking food. They did not recognize Joseph, but he recognized them. At that moment, Joseph had a choice. He could have sought revenge, repaid evil for evil, or turned them away in their time of need. But instead, he chose to forgive. He understood something profound. Their betrayal was not meant to destroy him, but to position him for a greater purpose. He famously told them, "You intended to harm me, but God meant it for good." Joseph's story teaches us that betrayal, no matter how painful, does not have to define our future. People may plot against you, lie about you, or try to bring you down, but if you trust in God, He will use their actions to elevate you. What others mean for harm, God can turn into a blessing. When betrayal happens in your life, remember Joseph. Instead of dwelling on the pain, focus on the purpose. The very people who try to break you may be the reason you rise to a level of success you never imagined. Betrayal is not the end of your story. It is just the beginning of a greater testimony. Stay faithful, trust the process, and watch how God turns what was meant for harm into something extraordinary. One of the most damaging effects of betrayal is the bitterness that follows. When someone we trust turns against us, deceives us, or abandons us, the pain is often unbearable. It is natural to feel anger, resentment, and even a desire for revenge. However, holding on to bitterness does not hurt the person who betrayed you, it hurts you. Instead of allowing the pain to control your life, it is essential to let go and trust that God has a greater plan beyond the betrayal. Bitterness is like a poison. It slowly eats away at your joy, your peace, and your ability to move forward. The more you dwell on the betrayal, the more it takes root in your heart, shaping the way you see the world. Instead of trusting others, you become guarded. Instead of embracing new opportunities, you remain stuck in the past. You begin to see yourself as a victim, allowing the actions of others to define your future. But bitterness does not change the past, it only destroys the present. Letting go of bitterness does not mean ignoring the pain or pretending that the betrayal never happened. It means acknowledging what happened, but choosing not to let it control your life. It means refusing to let someone else's actions dictate your happiness. When you let go of bitterness, you are not excusing the betrayal. You are freeing yourself from its hold on you. Forgiveness is a powerful way to release bitterness. Many people struggle with forgiveness because they believe it means justifying what was done to them. But forgiveness is not for the betrayer, it is for you. It is the act of releasing the burden of resentment so that you can heal. When you forgive, you are saying, I refuse to let this pain define me. I choose to move forward. Think about people who have allowed bitterness to consume them. They spend years, sometimes even decades, holding on to past hurts. They replay the betrayal in their minds over and over again, keeping themselves trapped in an endless cycle of pain. But those who choose to forgive, those who let go, experience freedom. They are able to move on, grow, and embrace new blessings. God does not want you to live in bitterness. He does not want your heart to be weighed down by resentment. Instead, He calls you to trust Him, to surrender your pain to Him, and to believe that He will bring beauty from the brokenness. The betrayal you experienced is not the end of your story. In fact, it may be the very thing that leads you to a greater purpose. So do not let bitterness steal your joy. Do not allow it to keep you from the blessings that are ahead. Let go, forgive, and move forward with faith. What was meant to break you will only make you stronger if you choose to release it. Trust that God is working all things together for your good. There comes a time in life when separation is necessary for elevation. Not everyone is meant to stay with you as you rise to new levels. Some people are only in your life for a season, and when that season ends, their departure is part of God's plan. It may not always make sense at first, but in hindsight you will realize that some people had to leave so you could move forward. Elevation requires separation. Many times we hold on to relationships, friendships, and partnerships that are no longer serving our purpose. We stay connected to people out of loyalty, comfort, or history, even when they are not meant to be part of our future. Sometimes we even lower our standards and limit our growth just to keep certain people in our lives. But when God has a greater purpose for you, He will allow separation to happen. Even through betrayal, He will remove the wrong people so He can make space for the right ones. Think about a rocket as it ascends into space. Different stages of the rocket must detach at different altitudes. If the parts that are meant to fall away remain attached, the rocket cannot reach its full potential. The same principle applies to your life. Some people are like those lower stages of the rocket. They were necessary for where you were, but they cannot go where you are headed. If you try to hold on to them, they will only weigh you down. Separation often happens in painful ways. A friend may betray you, a relationship may end unexpectedly, or someone you trusted may turn against you. In the moment it feels like a deep wound, but later you will see that their exit was necessary for your growth. Betrayal is often the vehicle God uses to disconnect you from the people who are holding you back. It is His way of saying, this person is not meant for your next level. Instead of mourning the loss, trust the process. One of the hardest things to accept is that not everyone is meant to celebrate your success. Some people are comfortable with you as long as you remain at their level, but the moment you start growing, their true feelings are revealed. They may begin to discourage you, compete with you, or even betray you. But do not be discouraged. This is simply God showing you who is not meant to go with you to the next stage of your journey. Elevation requires faith. It requires trusting that when people leave, God is making room for something better. Do not waste time chasing those who walked away. Do not try to hold on to relationships that God is trying to remove. Instead, focus on where He is taking you. Sometimes separation is painful, but it is always purposeful. If God is removing someone from your life, trust that it is for a reason. Keep moving forward and know that He is leading you to something far greater. Life has a way of testing us before it blesses us. Before any major breakthrough, there is almost always a period of hardship, opposition, or betrayal. This is not a coincidence. It is a divine process. Every great person who has ever achieved something significant has gone through trials that tested their faith, patience, and resilience. These tests are not meant to break you. They are meant to prepare you. The pain you experience before the blessing is a sign that something greater is coming. Before a promotion, there is always a period of proving. Think about it. In school, you must pass tests before advancing to the next grade. In the workplace, you often have to go through challenges before earning a promotion. The same principle applies in life. God does not bless unprepared people. He will allow you to go through seasons of struggle to refine you, strengthen you, and prepare you for what is next. Many people give up just before their breakthrough. They get weary in the struggle, frustrated by the opposition, and discouraged by betrayal. But what if they had held on just a little longer? What if the very thing they were about to walk away from was the blessing they had been waiting for? That is why perseverance is so important. The test before the blessing is not meant to make you quit. It is meant to develop the strength you will need for the next season. One of the most well-known examples of this is the story of David. Before he became king, he went through years of hardship. He was anointed as a young boy, but he did not step into his destiny immediately. Instead, he was forced to flee from King Saul, who tried to kill him out of jealousy. David had to hide in caves, live as an outcast, and endure betrayal from those he trusted. But through all of it, he remained faithful to God, and the time was right. He stepped into his destiny and became one of the greatest kings in history. If David had given up during the test, he would have never reached his throne. The same is true for you. Your struggles are not in vain. Your pain is not wasted. God is using your trials to develop you, to sharpen your character, and to prepare you for the blessing that is coming. The people who betrayed you, the doors that closed, and the setbacks you experienced were all part of your preparation. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" start asking, "What is this preparing me for?" When you change your perspective, you realize that your struggles are not obstacles. They are stepping stones. So, when you find yourself facing opposition right before a major breakthrough, do not give up. The test before the blessing is a sign that you are closer than you think. Stay faithful, stay strong, and trust that what is coming is far greater than what you are leaving behind. When you face betrayal, opposition, or unexpected loss, it is easy to feel like everything is falling apart. You may wonder why certain people turned against you, why doors suddenly closed, or why life took an unexpected turn. But what if all of it was part of a divine setup? What if the very things that seemed to be working against you were actually working for you? Sometimes God allows things to fall apart so that He can rebuild them in a way that aligns with His greater plan for your life. When people betray you, it can feel like rejection. You may question your worth, your decisions, or even your faith, but what if their betrayal was actually your protection? What if their exit from your life was necessary for your elevation? Many times, the people we hold on to are not meant to go with us to the next level. We may not see it at the time, but in hindsight, we realize that if they had stayed, they would have limited us. God removes people who will hinder your growth, and He does it not to hurt you, but to position you for something greater. Think about a tree during the autumn season. The leaves that once flourished begin to wither and fall away. If you were to judge the tree by its bare branches, you might think it was dying, but in reality, it is going through a necessary process. The shedding of leaves makes room for new growth in the spring. The same principle applies to life. What seems like loss is often preparation for something greater. Sometimes it is not just people that God removes, but also opportunities, positions, and even dreams we once held on to. When a door closes, it is natural to feel disappointed. But if you trust in God's plan, you will see that a closed door often leads to a better one. A job opportunity that did not work out might be the reason you end up in a career that is far more fulfilling. A relationship that ended might make room for a healthier and more loving one. What seems like an unfair loss today might be the very thing that leads you to your breakthrough tomorrow. One of the greatest examples of this is found in the life of Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely imprisoned. At any point he could have given up, but through every setback, God was setting him up. By the time Joseph stepped into his destiny as a ruler in Egypt, he realized that everything he went through was necessary. If his brothers had never betrayed him, he would have never ended up in a position to save his family and an entire nation. So when you face betrayal, rejection, or loss, do not see it as the end. Instead, see it as God's way of setting you up for something greater. Trust that He is in control, and what is meant for you will never pass you by.